The night was quiet in Galilee. A fire burned low, shadows flickered on stone walls, and a small group huddled together, hanging on every word spoken by the man they called Rabbi. Jesus leaned forward, his eyes glowing with an intensity that seemed to pierce through the veil of the world. "The kingdom of God," he said softly, "is not here, nor is it there. It is within you." Those words, whispered 2,000 years ago, were more radical and more dangerous than any miracle he performed. For hidden inside that statement was a truth so explosive, so transformative, that it threatened to unravel the power of priests, kings, and empires. And that may be why, for centuries, this teaching was suppressed, rewritten, and obscured. On the surface, the statement sounds poetic, even comforting. But to the rulers of the first century, the priests of the temple, the Roman governors, and later the bishops who built Christianity into an empire, it was terrifying. If the divine presence lives within every human being, then the authority of kings, priests, and institutions crumbles. No longer would people need to go to temples, pay offerings, or obey human hierarchies to reach God. The sacred would not dwell in golden altars, but in the beating of every heart. This was Jesus' most dangerous teaching, that heaven is not a faraway place, but a reality you can awaken to within yourself. In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus tells his followers,
"The kingdom of God is within you."
It is a simple phrase, yet its implications are enormous. If the sacred dwells within, then each person is a temple. The presence of God is not confined to the grandeur of Solomon's temple, nor is it controlled by the elite priesthood that guarded its gates. Instead, it is accessible to shepherds, fishermen, tax collectors, and prostitutes. It is an inner kingdom, invisible to the eye, yet more real than the stones of Jerusalem. For the poor and marginalized, this was a revelation of hope. For the powerful, it was a threat to their monopoly on spiritual authority. Rome ruled through hierarchy and fear. Power flowed downward, from the emperor to the governors, to the soldiers, and finally, to the people. Religious authorities in Judea, meanwhile, relied on the temple as the singular place where God's presence dwelled. Offerings, tithes, and rituals kept that system alive. But if Jesus was right, if the divine was already within each soul, then neither Rome's armies nor the temple's priests were necessary for access to the sacred. It meant every human being carried within them the same spark, the same connection. It meant no empire could truly own God. This was subversive and dangerous. Centuries later, long after Jesus' crucifixion, secretive sects known as the Gnostics preserved and expanded upon this radical idea. In texts like the Gospel of Thomas, discovered at Nag Hammadi in 1945, Jesus is recorded as saying, "The kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you. When you come to know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will realize that you are the children of the living Father." This was not the God of fear and punishment, preached from pulpits of power. This was a God found in self-knowledge, silence, and inner awakening. To the Gnostics, the church did not own the keys to heaven. You did. For the early church fathers, such teachings were too dangerous to tolerate. If people truly believed they could find God within themselves, why would they kneel to bishops, pay for indulgences, or obey rigid hierarchies? And so, these teachings were branded as heresy. The Gnostic Gospels were burned. Mystics who whispered of divine light within were silenced, exiled, or executed. Over centuries, the radical message of inner divinity was replaced by doctrines of sin, obedience, and the need for intermediaries. The church placed itself as the gatekeeper to salvation, ensuring that no one could bypass its authority. Yet, this teaching, that the divine is not external but internal, was not unique to Jesus. In Hinduism, the Upanishads whispered of the Atman, the divine self that is one with Brahman, the infinite reality. In Sufism, mystics like Rumi sang that the temple is within, and that to know God, one must look inward, not outward. Even in Hermetic philosophy, we find the axiom, as above, so below, as within, so without. These teachings suggest that consciousness itself is the bridge between the human and the divine. But throughout history, such wisdom has often been hidden, dismissed, or condemned. After all, what would happen if humanity truly realized that no priest or king could stand between them and the infinite? Strangely, modern science has begun circling back to an ancient mystery. Quantum physics tells us that reality is not as solid as it seems. Particles flicker in and out of existence. Observation itself seems to shape reality. Neuroscience, too, is beginning to unravel the mysteries of consciousness. Yet no one can fully explain where awareness comes from. Some researchers suggest that consciousness may not be produced by the brain at all, but that the brain acts more like a receiver of a greater signal. This idea echoes Jesus' teaching. If the kingdom is within you, perhaps it is not just a metaphor. Perhaps consciousness is a doorway into a greater reality, a divine source code from which all life emerges. When Jesus told his followers that the kingdom of God was within, he was not simply offering comfort. He was issuing a challenge. He was telling ordinary people that they did not need to seek power in temples or kings, that they did not need to bow to Caesar or even to the religious authorities who claim to control salvation. This teaching, if it spread unchecked, could dismantle the very foundations of empire and organized religion. It was in every sense revolutionary. And revolutions are dangerous. So over the centuries, the most mystical and empowering words of Jesus were pushed to the margins, hidden in secret manuscripts or labeled heretical. In their place, the church built a structure of dogma that placed authority in the hands of the few, rather than the divine spark within the many. When the Gospel of Thomas was unearthed in the sands of Egypt, it shocked the world. Unlike the canonical Gospels, it was a collection of sayings, cryptic, poetic, and filled with riddles. Jesus tells his disciples, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not have will destroy you." Here, the divine is not a distant judge, but a hidden treasure already planted inside the human spirit. Salvation comes not from external rituals, but from inner awakening. It was precisely this idea, that you are the temple of God, that the powers of the world could not control. Throughout history, mystics who echoed this teaching often paid the ultimate price. The Cathars of medieval France, who believed that divine light lived within every soul, were branded heretics and burned by the Inquisition. Mystics like Meister Eckhart spoke of the divine spark within, only to face charges of heresy. Even in Islam, the Sufi mystic Al-Hallaj, who declared, "I am the truth," was executed for his words that echo Christ's own, "I and the Father are one." Again and again, the message that the divine lives within the human being was suppressed because it threatened the very structures built on hierarchy, fear, and control. In today's age, a new metaphor has emerged. The idea that reality itself may be a simulation. Scientists, philosophers, and technologists alike debate whether our universe is, at its core, a kind of code, an immense program running in an unseen reality. If this is true, then what Jesus said takes on a new layer of meaning. To say that the kingdom of God is within you is to suggest that the code, the source, the divine programmer, exists not out there, but inside your own consciousness. You are both player and program, dreamer and dream. Could this be the suppressed secret? That humanity carries within itself the very spark of divinity, the power to awaken from the simulation, to remember its true nature.
In recent decades, spiritual seekers around the world have begun rediscovering the same truth. Meditation teachers speak of the kingdom of heaven as a state of consciousness, accessible in silence and presence. Psychonauts exploring altered states describe meeting the divine within themselves. Scientists studying the brain find evidence that consciousness may be fundamental to the cosmos, not merely a byproduct of neurons. It seems that the most dangerous teaching of Jesus is also the most empowering, that humanity does not need permission to awaken, does not need an external authority to mediate between them and the divine. The suppression of this teaching was not just a matter of history, it still reverberates today. Entire institutions are built on the idea that human beings are weak, sinful, and dependent on external saviors. But if Jesus' words are taken literally, they suggest something radical. You already carry the seed of divinity. The kingdom of God is not a place you go after death. It is a reality you can awaken to now. This is not just theology, it is a revolution in consciousness. It means that every human, regardless of class, race, or creed, is a direct reflection of the infinite. And if that is true, then the greatest secret of all is not hidden in ancient temples or guarded by priests, but hidden in plain sight, in you. The fire has burned low. The disciples sit in silence, still trying to grasp the meaning of their master's words. Jesus rises, his shadow stretching long against the stone. He looks at them, one by one, as though peering not at their faces, but into the eternal light within their souls. The kingdom is here, he says. It has always been here. But only those who awaken will see it. And with that, he turns, walking into the night, leaving behind not commandments carved in stone, but a mystery inscribed on the human heart. The world would try to silence it. Religions would bury it. Empires would deny it. But the secret remains, waiting for those willing to look within. You just uncovered another secret.
With JB Animated Mysteries. If this journey spoke to you, like, share, comment and subscribe so you never miss the hidden truths waiting in the shadows. Until we meet again, remember, the veil is thin and the mysteries are endless.